This lesson is called Negotiating and Closing the Deal, and it will show you how to negotiate with clients and close freelance deals. This lesson is important because everything you do in life relies on your ability to close. You might think this is just a thing with business, but it's not. It's your entire life. Because you need to first understand what the close is, and then you will see how it really does apply to everything. The close is where you get an exchange. Life is all about negotiating, and the final step in the pursuit of any goal is the close. It's something that happens in every part of your life. The world is full of big ideas and dreams, but without closing, you can't make anything a reality. This is the most important skill that you will learn and you will master on your freelance journey. And it determines how good you will do. Because even if you're the best at your skill set, if you don't know how to negotiate and to close deals and land clients, you will never have freelance success. In this lesson, we will be covering the difference between an objection and a complaint, how to handle those real objections that do come up, how to assume the sale to land more clients, how to have 100% conviction throughout this entire process so you can be a better negotiator, how to focus on the benefits that you're providing, and then how to negotiate with value, not with price. And lastly, how to control the freelance sales process so you can negotiate and close at a much higher success rate. Now it's time to look at the difference between what a complaint is and what an objection is. A lot of people mistake complaints for real objections, and that hurts them when they go to negotiate and close deals, because a lot of times they're focusing on handling the customer's complaints, which are nothing more than a complaint and really doesn't hold them back from purchasing. So most of what you hear are actually complaints, or what's known as an RDR, which is a reactionary defense response. You can think about this when you go to a mall or a store and you walk into that store. And what happens? You're greeted by a salesperson and they ask you, "Can I help you find anything?" And usually 99% of the time, even if you're there for a specific thing, most people are protective and defensive because they know salespeople are there to make money by selling them things. So what do most people say? They say, "Oh, I'm just looking, thank you." And what does that do? That automatically comes off as an objection for the salesperson, and they usually say, "Okay, let me know if you need anything, I'll be over here." They took the complaint for an objection. That is not a real objection. Most people are there to find something. So what salespeople can say instead is, "Okay, no problem. What are you looking for? I'll show you where the right direction is." That's how you can automatically start moving into fact-finding and not focus on the complaint. Make sure you understand what a reactionary defense response is and what a complaint is and what a real objection is. It will be different based on what freelance skill you provide and what type of clients you work with. But it's up to you to begin to identify the difference between the two. The reason this is important is because you don't handle objections that are really only complaints. Distinguish the difference between these two and treat all objections as complaints until the potential client gives you a reason otherwise. Most complaints can be handled simply by just saying, "I understand," and then moving on to the next stage. That could even mean moving on to asking them to close the deal. So handle them by agreeing first. And then if the complaint is brought up enough and validated, it will turn into an objection that you can then handle using the future steps I'm going to provide. Then you want to move past the complaints to find the customer's real pain points and their buying motives. That is how you can learn to handle them. So when you're dealing with objections and RDRs and complaints, always agree with them first and move further towards finding what their real motives are. Sometimes what they say isn't always what they mean, and you need to listen for small things like the tone of their voice and what they're implying with the words they're saying. Now, let's move on to how you can handle those objections that are real and that aren't just complaints. First, you want to agree first, no matter what. We've spoken about this throughout the academy, and the reason that I'm bringing it up multiple times is because in order to be a profitable freelancer, this needs to be deeply ingrained in what you do and how you act. Agreeing with customers builds a relationship with them. So keep using those different phrases I've been teaching you, such as saying, I understand, I totally get it, I know where you're coming from, and things of that nature. That helps people feel more comfortable. And that's why when you're going and negotiating and closing, understand that you're providing value, because closing a client is really providing them a service, because you're making them pull the trigger and make a decision. So don't get this confused with just being nice. When you look into what the word nice actually means, it actually means something that comes from another word that means foolish, simple, silly, or ignorant. So you don't want to be nice, but what you want to do is relate with the client, tell them you understand, and then move to the next step in the journey. Always remember, you need to be attempting to close and to land the client if they're a good fit for you. Keep persisting on your journey. Whenever stalls, complaints, and objections come up, make sure to agree with them and move on. If they really keep bringing it up, that's when you can go about learning what the real pain point is and how to handle that objection. Closing is a service you're providing. So remember this as you're selling clients and as you're negotiating with them, because you're not just doing this to be nice, you're doing it to help them. They need to make a decision, and you know that you're the best fit for the project. So make that clear while you're communicating with them. Next, write down the most common objections that you get. You can also include the different stalls and the different complaints that come up. What you're trying to do here is get a list of the most common things people say when you're trying to sell your specific skill set or whatever product or service it is that you sell. Once you have this list, you'll realize there's probably only a handful of common objections, and they can probably fit within a couple different categories. That helps you determine how you can handle each objection from a systematic approach. So once you know how to handle the different price objections people have, or maybe it's an education objection where they just don't know how something works that you're offering, and for that reason, it's throwing them off. Once you know what the common objections are, and you know how to handle them from experience, that's when you can turn into the most profitable freelancer possible. After that, continue finding ways to handle that objection and drill down on it. So once you find a handful of your most common objections and you start to understand different ways that you can handle them, that's when you want to start drilling down deeper and finding multiple different ways you can handle each specific complaint. As you start to drill things and as you start to prepare scripts from this, that will help you get more skilled. There's a saying out there, it says, drillers become killers. And that means in sports and anything you do in life, the more you drill something, the more effective you are going to be at it, especially when you're competing with people who haven't drilled these things. So even though there's competition out there in freelancing and in every industry, if you do everything I'm teaching you in this academy and you continue to drill and to practice, you'll be putting yourself in the best position possible to really have success and to land clients on a consistent basis. So write down all of those objections, start to drill how you can handle them, and you can even record yourself doing this daily and role play with another person. The more serious you take this, the more success you will have. Then continue developing a full arsenal of ways you can handle all of the objections. So even though you might have a couple of different ways to handle each one, don't settle with that. Always have an arsenal at your disposal that you can use. Have an arsenal of different closes that you can use in any situation that comes up. Most people quit because they only have a couple of closes. But what happens when those fail and the client doesn't understand those or doesn't go with those? You need a bunch in your pocket that you can just pull out to handle all different types of people, different personalities, and different types of clients. This relates back to the correct expectations of work required to get the results that are needed. You need to know that it takes a lot of work to become successful at anything. And you don't just stop once you have a couple solutions. Wouldn't you rather be over-prepared than under-prepared? What you want to do is you want to develop a full way that you can handle every specific situation. This will all be integrated into your call scripts, into your CRM, and into your profitable freelance sales process. Next, don't shy away from the truth. Pressure is perceived as a bad thing in society, and it gets a lot of people flustered. They don't know how to handle it. But in reality, pressure is a good thing, and pressure is what makes diamonds. So when you're pressuring someone to do something that you know is right for them, that's not a bad form of pressure. If you're telling clients the truth that if they don't work with you now and they wait and they go with someone else, that could potentially be a bad choice for them, that's fine. You need to tell clients the truth. You must be willing to be insistent. You need to be able to keep following up and to keep pushing for the sale. Don't worry about being nice. Worry about servicing the client. Never listen to what society says just because there's a certain norm. Remember, the school system and society, they make people that are just good at staying in a specific box, performing the tasks that they need to, paying taxes, and then dying. That's what the normal society is breeding. So as a profitable freelancer, that's not you. So you have to break those norms and don't get comfortable with always doing what the societal norm is. If you believe you are better than the competition, then you need to put pressure on that client to close the deal. Pressure is what will close those deals in those last few moments. You need to keep persisting, and you need to be so sold on your offer and on what you offer as a freelancer that you keep using that to drive you forward. When you're purpose-driven and you're focused on your why, money will just be attracted to you based on the actions you're taking. Because when you're focusing on your purpose, you're willing to take the actions necessary to succeed. So be goal-oriented here, and don't shy away from the truth and from pressure. The burden of physical or mental distress is going to be worth achieving your passion and your dreams and your why. So remember all of that as you're negotiating and closing deals, to always stay in the line of the truth and to move the journey forward one step at a time. And this also means asking those hard questions when you need to push that sales process forward. If someone doesn't seem like they're paying attention to you on a call, for example, just ask them, do I have your full attention right now? If you're giving people a sales demonstration and you can tell that they're asking questions that seem like they just don't believe you, ask them, do you believe anything I'm saying right now? You need to ask the hard questions as they come up, and you need to get answers for them. You can also ask them, what % of everything I've said right now do you actually believe? What this does is it gets them to connect. You're letting them know that you know in the freelance sales process that freelancers say a lot of different things and that a lot of times they can easily exaggerate. So by breaking down that wall with the client, by letting them know that you understand the journey and you know that people are oftentimes saying a lot of big claims, it helps you connect with them and it helps you get a real answer and stand out in their mind. Don't be afraid of the truth. Don't be afraid of those hard questions. That is what is going to help you land clients. And as these objections come up, I want to give you some examples of ways you can handle them. So when objections come up about the price, a lot of times this will happen after you provide that written quote. The customer might just say something like, the price is too high. And instead of disagreeing with them right off the bat and doing all of those things that don't make a profitable freelancer, what you want to do is you want to approach it in a way where you're handling that objection. And this is how you can handle a price objection. You can say, sir or ma'am, I know the price is high. Everyone I have ever spoken to at this point in time says that. But here's the thing. Once you realize the return on investment you're going to get with the Google Ads services I provide, it will all start to make sense for you. And then I can even go into an example of my most recent e-commerce client that I got a 300% return on ad spend for in the first few months of management. From there, I can go into the call to action and say, how does that sound? Let's make it happen. So automatically, I'm showing the value I'm providing and I'm handling that objection once I hear that. And it needs to be an automatic thing based on the previous steps I just taught you. Once you have those common objections down and the different ways to handle them based on the personality type you're dealing with, you can pull this out of your pocket and handle objections and close more deals than you ever thought possible. It's not just about the product. As you learned in the Price Myth, clients don't just buy services. They're investing in way more than that. They're also thinking, is this freelancer going to take care of me? Are they going to provide that expert level service? Another price objection you might get is when a client says, another freelancer I spoke to is cheaper than you. This is saying that your price is too high without really saying it. And I like to handle this by saying something to this effect. Okay, well, which one of us would you rather work with if our prices were the same? If the customer says yours, then you can say, okay, well, why? What are the reasons you would rather work with me? And then once they give you a couple reasons, they maybe will say, oh, well, I really like your proposal. I really like your portfolio. You can say, oh, well, why else? Why else? And then they might say something like, oh, well, you reached out really quick, etc., etc. From there, you can say, okay, sir or ma'am, well, then you can see why I'm worth more money or why we are worth more money if you're working on an agency or a team. Let's make this happen. That's how you can start moving past these price objections. Because what have you just done right there? You've made the customer see the value that you provide, and that makes the customer sell themselves. It justifies why you're worth more money, and it's a psychological way you can handle price objections. On the other side of the token, if the client says they want to work with the other freelancer, you can just ask them the same questions and ask them, well, why would you want to work with me? Why are you speaking with me then? And then you can say, oh, well, you actually want to work with the competitors if we're the same rate? Then why is that? And then you can say, what is it that I don't have or that we don't have? And then from there, you can go into another demonstration. You can say, oh, okay, well, I actually do provide this service, or I actually have someone on my team or another freelancer I know that I help with this service. So make sure that they're on the right product. Sometimes a price objection can come up because the client is actually asking you for the wrong service. So don't be afraid to ask the buyer the price from the competitor. Ask them, well, oh, okay, well, what does the other freelancer charge? What value do you see with them? This all goes into asking the hard questions and staying on the path of the truth and of ethics. You're telling them exactly why you're more expensive, and then if they're trying to say that another competitor is a better fit for them, then ask them why they're still talking to you in the first place. A lot of times you'll start to see that there's more reasons to it, and that they might actually like you more than another freelancer, but the other freelancer's rate is lower. So you just need to build that value in their mind why you're worth it. Another type of objection you might get is the demonstration objection. And this might happen after that first client call on the freelance sales process, right before you go into the sales demo. And when this happens, the client or the customer might say, oh, I already know all about specific service you provide. I just need your price. When this happens, you want to say something to the effect of this. Sir or ma'am, I understand. I'm with you. I didn't ask that I show you all the things you already know. I just want to show you some unseen benefits of this new Google Ads feature or whatever service you provide, such as, and then you can go into explaining it and giving some curiosity. So in this example, I said, such as some new keyword ranking and local search tools. It would be doing both of us a disservice if I did not take the time to show you it completely. And then you can go into a time objection in this demonstration objection as well. and say it will only take 10 minutes of your time and I can answer questions as we go. How does that sound? What this does is it shows that you're not shortcutting the freelance sales process. You're making sure that you're showing the client the full demonstration, because as we went over in the previous sections, it all builds on each other. You need to know what the scope of work is. You need to make sure they're on the right product. And if you just start skipping steps of the freelance sales process, just because it's hard and objections come up, you're not going to be able to have success and land clients. So if a customer continues to try to talk you out of it, use different ways to handle that objection like this one so you can get them on that demo and make sure that they're a good client for you before you send them a quote. Next, another way you can close and negotiate more deals as a freelancer is to assume the sale. And by assuming the sale, I mean that you are subconsciously making that potential client think that you already have their relationship. You already have that sale with them. And a lot of times, what you have to do to assume the sale is to just ask for the sale. A lot of freelancers don't ask for the sale soon enough, and they put it off till the very end when the client has to bring it up. But that's not what you want to do. So many people are doing this and they're missing out on building that mental ownership and connection with that potential client's relationship. Use ownership words such as your. For example, what you can do is if you're servicing websites or building websites, you can say, "When would you like to take ownership of your new website?" That's a way you can start to show that you're already assuming the sale and you're assuming that the client is interested in you because they're still speaking with you, and you're showing them that you're eager to get started and close the deal and move the process forward. This will work on multiple different levels in their mind. If they do notice that you're doing it, they'll know that you're serious. And if they don't notice, even at that subconscious level, it's going to make them more likely to do business with you. This is just like when you go and buy a car or test drive a car. They're going to use words like, "How do you like your new car?" before you've even bought it. When I was buying my last car, I was driving it and the salesperson made me pull up to the gas station and fill it up and just said, "Yeah, let's fill up your tank real quick. This one's on me." And he was already assuming the sale before we even did any negotiating. And obviously, as a freelancer and a marketing guy and salesperson, I knew what was happening. But even though I knew what was happening, it still showed me that they were going above and beyond to get my business. And that's what you want to do when you're negotiating with these high-ticket clients. Next, be committed when you do everything as a freelancer. Have 100% conviction and act from a place where you are so fired up and you have so much passion that it just shines through to the world. This is how you're going to go from an average freelancer to an amazingly successful one. You need to be a super freak in your presentations, and people need to just see and feel that your energy is through the roof. Now, this doesn't mean that you're acting psychotic or you're doing anything that's outrageous, but it just means that you're so above and beyond the norm that it stands out, that it gets their attention. So a lot of times in freelancing and in sales, a lot of people get stuck in the same process. They use the same sort of words and it becomes very repetitive. And you want to get their attention. You want to shock them in a good way. You want them to consider doing business with you on a long-term basis. So you need to make sure that you're always doing things with 100% conviction. If you're doing a demo or you're on a client call and you're not 100% sold on yourself or your product, that will shine through. And you want to focus on the benefits and the advantages you provide. As a profitable freelancer, you want to take the focus off of the price and onto the value that you're providing. And you can also focus on the benefits and advantages of the service or the platform that you work on. You want to focus on everything that the client is going to get and how you are going to solve their problem. The price is just what they are going to pay you to get that done. But once they're sold on all the advantages and the value you provide is when you are going to actually close that deal. Some ways you can start negotiating with value and not with price is by selling yourself and not just the service or product that you're selling. Sell yourself as a freelancer. So when you're speaking about the service and the value you provide, make sure to show the value that you bring to the table as a freelancer. So this means, how dedicated are you? How good at communicating are you? How passionate are you about continuing to learn and develop your craft? You need to sell that to the client. Sell to them that you're an expert in this field and you're never stopping that learning process. This will make them more comfortable and more likely that you close that deal. Also, don't focus on the product or the service. Remember, that can be bought anywhere else from any other freelancer. So focus on the value you're providing. For example, if you're providing Google Ads, don't focus on the actual product, on the campaign, for example, in this negotiating process. Focus on what the results are going to be. Focus on the value you're going to provide, how your expert level skills will provide a higher return on investment than working with another freelancer. That is how you can start to negotiate with value and not just on the product or the price that you're providing. And make yourself part of the value that your customers are buying. Like in that first example, you're not just selling your product or service, you're also selling yourself. So add that into the value that the customers are getting. That will help them understand why they should choose you over someone else. Next, if the client keeps insisting on a lower price, what you can do is, instead of lowering the price, is you can deliver more value. So you can offer them more services, for example, or a longer time period of management. But instead of lowering the price, you're increasing the value. That's what's important here. That shows the client that you're not just going to budge and lower your prices just because they asked, but it does show that you're willing to do some negotiating here. And what you're doing is you're throwing in more value, which means you're dedicating more of your time and your energy to that client. This is a great way to negotiate, and it will help you keep your prices at that profitable point. Lastly, give the client upfront free value to prove that your price is worth it. And this is all a function of that winning proposal formula. When you start to deliver the work in the proposal, you start to show them how much value that you provide on the sales demo and on the call. And what it does is it moves you into that closing range. That's when you're done negotiating, you've proven all the value, you're showing them, not just telling them. And then when you ask for the close, you're much more likely to get it. So here are some questions to control the close when you're ready to ask for it. Are there any changes or additions to your website templates before we address the figures? This gets you to that next step where you can go into talking about price, sending the quote, and closing the deal. You can also ask, may you allow me to provide you with figures that will make it easy to say yes to your new website? If the client says something like, oh, I'm not making a decision today, you can say, I know you're not expecting to buy a website today, but can I show you how easy it is for us to do business together? You can also ask things like, what do you think your customers will think of your new website? That's using a couple different key success factors here. It's assuming the sale, and it's also putting the client in their customer's shoes, and you're showing them the value that you're going to provide. So you're taking the focus off of that website that you're providing, and you're putting the focus on what the customers are going to think of it. That's how you can start controlling the close with these advanced questions. Another thing you can ask is, if the client's in a hurry, you can say, I understand you're in a hurry. Can we review the figures to get you your new website built fast? So in this example, let's say you've already sent them the quote. The client says they're interested, but they said they're in a hurry. So you can agree with them, say, I understand you're in a hurry, and let them know that you can work fast. You're adaptable. Let them know, let's review the figures so you can get started. Lastly, let's say the client says that they still need to interview more freelancers. You can say, I appreciate that you've not interviewed all of your proposals yet. May I suggest what I can do for you, and I'll leave the final decision up to you? That's a way that you're opening the door to that close. Even if you don't get it right then, You're controlling the close, you're controlling the process, and you're doing your own form of negotiating as a profitable freelancer. This is all ways you can control the close and land clients. Here's a quote from Mark Cuban. To be a successful entrepreneur, you have to work knowing that someone else is out there working 24 hours a day with one goal: to take your business away. What this quote tells me is that you need to be sold on yourself. When you're sold on yourself and you're so passionate about being a freelancer and helping these business owners solve their problems with the skill you provide, that's when you break through to that next level. And that's when you become a truly successful and profitable freelancer in every area and meaning of the word. So now you know how to negotiate and how to close deals as a freelancer. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.